Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer, coming at you with my pearl handle pistol cufflinks. And we're going to react today. There's just so much going on with Donald Trump that it's in his circle and everything. There's so much legal going on. We just have to react to it because it's absolutely fascinating from my standpoint. But before we get into that, I want to let you know that this episode, as most of our episodes, are brought to you by eForms.com. That's eForms.com. If you are looking for a form or power of attorney, a loan agreement, anything, any forms legal, go to eForms.com so you don't have to hire a guy like me, spend a bunch of money to draft some form that you can get on eForms.com. So go there, and I highly recommend it because I actually use some of their forms myself. So today we're going to react to a bunch of stuff going on with Donald Trump. Let's just do a recap. You know, here's the thing. I have clients all the time that wind up getting case after case after case after case, and they're very hard to manage because you have one case and you can look at it and say, you know, I could beat that, but then you did this, you know, and I have no defense to this, so I'm okay here. I'm fucked over here. Well, Donald Trump has so many irons in the fire. He's got, I think, approximately 20 civil lawsuits that he's currently fighting. He has the AG in New York after him, along with the district attorney in New York. He also has the DOJ in Washington, D.C. after him. And he also has the DA in Fulton County, Georgia. Let's kind of break those down. The DA and the AG in New York had him sit down for a deposition, basically. And I think they had about a dozen lawyers talk to him and ask him questions. And other than his name, guess what he did? He took the Fifth Amendment on every single question that was substantive, except for his name. Now he's entitled to do that, and that's probably the smartest thing that he's done so far. The problem is, in a civil case, so if they're going after him civilly for all these back tax damages, when you take the Fifth Amendment, it is not painless. It comes with a price. When somebody takes the Fifth Amendment in a civil case, whoever the fact finder is can draw an adverse inference from that. And what that means is they can look at the fact that he did that and think, oh, he's got something to hide. So the answer to that question must be the opposite. In other words, it's got to hurt. The answer's got to be in the negative, you know, towards Donald Trump or anybody else who takes the Fifth. So let's just kind of look at what it means. So I'll give you an example. So if you sit down to the deposition and isn't it true that you inflated value of your property to get favorable loans, and then you use that same property and deflated it to get a different tax value on it to save money on taxes? Now, if you answer by taking the Fifth, then the answer is whatever negative implication you get from either one of those. Now, in a criminal context, that cannot be held against you. So you have the absolute right to remain silent, and criminally, the jury cannot draw an adverse inference from that. So that's what that means. So I think he's in some deep financial trouble in New York, no question about it. And what he did in New York was he got several properties, and for tax purposes, they reduced the value, they took depreciation and said it wasn't worth, you know, X. And for loan value, they pumped it up, and you can't do that. You have to be truthful in both contexts. If you're lying in both contexts, that can be you can be held criminally liable for that. Now, let's skip D.C. for a second, and let's go down to Atlanta, Georgia, the Fulton County DA down there. She's investigating the election fraud and the interference with the election, where Donald Trump actually said, I need 11,000 votes, fellas, come on. And he really did some pressuring.
I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
And so in that case, Lindsey Graham has been ordered to testify. So now Rudy Giuliani not only has been ordered to testify, he's been notified that he's also a target in that investigation. See, you can't just go around making bullshit arguments all over the place, all over the country for that matter. That's why he lost his license. Things that just aren't true. You can't say things that aren't true in front of a court. And so he most certainly will take the Fifth Amendment in front of the grand jury. And when you do that, they can't draw an adverse inference. They can't use it against you later. If you testify and you say things that are true or untrue or whatever, that's fair game. They can use that against you any way they want later. But they can't use your Fifth Amendment constitutional right to remain silent against you. So those are pretty major things, just those two. But let's talk about what's going on in D.C. The other thing we didn't talk about was, remember Michael Cohen? Michael Cohen pled guilty to campaign finance laws, and I think he got 3 years as a result of it. And he got out of prison a little bit early, but who was he acting on behalf of, and why did he plead guilty? He was acting on behalf of Donald Trump. So that case is still live, and Trump does have some exposure there. Let's react now to Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland is the Attorney General of the United States. And I did a reaction to the raid that they did on Trump. So it wasn't really a raid. I mean, it was they executed a search warrant. Now, to get a search warrant, someone has to write an affidavit up establishing probable cause. And probable cause that a crime was committed and that there's evidence of that crime in the place to be searched. It has to articulate with specifics what is to be searched and what is to be found. We know for a fact that there were one or maybe two informants that were part of that search warrant, or the search warrant application. There's a search warrant, a receipt, inventory, return, that has all the things listed on there, and then we have the application for the search warrant. So they've released the search warrant itself. They have not released the receipt, inventory, and return, I don't think. Trump could certainly do that because he most certainly would have gotten that. Then you've got the application for the search warrant, and that is now sealed. Trump's team has moved to unseal it, and the government is trying to keep it sealed, stating that it's part of their investigation. But let's watch Merrick Garland's press conference.
Good afternoon. Since I became Attorney General, I have made clear that the Department of Justice will speak through its court filings and its work.
Which is what they should do. And remember, this came out a couple days after I did my reaction, and I told you that he would come out and have a statement a couple days later.
Just now, the Justice Department has filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal a search warrant and property receipt relating to a court-approved search that the FBI conducted earlier this week.
The search warrant is the actual warrant that the judge signs. The receipt is the items found.
Copies of both the warrant and the FBI property receipt were provided on the day of the search to the former president's counsel, who was on site during the search. The search warrant was authorized by a federal court upon the required finding of probable cause.
So, like I said, you cannot, and when you're dealing with a former president, I guarantee you, if they didn't have their I's dotted, their T's crossed, they wouldn't have gotten this search warrant.
The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter. Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy.
So there have been a lot of talk about the judge is tainted, the FBI is tainted, that Merrick Garland is a traitor and he's tainted, everybody's tainted, but except for Trump is just Mr. Whatever. No, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. You got a federal judge and you have a process that they have to go through. And I know there are going to be some people who, are drinking the Trump Kool-Aid. Fine, I understand that. But what's going to happen is this will result in facts being found out. And there were 3 statutes that were implicated. The espionage statute, the Presidential Records Act, and obstruction of justice. Those 3 statutes.
Much of our work is by necessity conducted out of the public eye. We do that to protect the constitutional rights of all Americans and to protect the integrity of our investigations. Federal law, long-standing department rules, and our ethical obligations prevent me from providing further details as to the basis of the search at this time.
So the whole reason for that, let's say they do this search and they had information that was bad. In other words, their application for the search warrant contained information they thought was true at the time they did their search, and that what they were looking for is not there. And so they've done this search, and if they have gone off half-cocked, they would have besmirched somebody who was not guilty of a crime. So we want them to kind of hold their cards to the vest.
There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken.
So let's talk about that for a second, that less intrusive means. First of all, they asked for the documents. They received a bunch of boxes of documents. Then they were told that there's more there. So then they sent a subpoena, and they were negotiating a subpoena with those lawyers. Deaf ears. So nothing happened. They didn't respond to the subpoena. So the only measure that is available to them is to execute a search warrant if they have credible information, which it seems like they did.
Third, let me address recent unfounded attacks on the professionalism of the FBI and Justice Department agents and prosecutors. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked. The men and women of the FBI and the Justice Department are dedicated, patriotic public servants.
Here's the thing. I've had a lot of cases over 25 years with the FBI. I do a lot of federal work, and I can count on one hand the number of times I caught an FBI agent in a lie. And even then, I don't know that it was a lie, but it was certainly not telling the whole truth in court. But 99.999 times out of 100, here's the other thing. They're super motivated, they're super fucking patient, and they know what the hell they're doing, and they're very well educated. Here's the thing. They don't need to go out looking for business. Business finds them, right? But right now, there is this anti-law enforcement culture out there, and there's people saying just kind of awful stuff about law enforcement. And believe me, I'm not a super fan of law enforcement. It's what I do to oppose them, right? But I don't think you should threaten their lives.
This is all I can say right now. More information will be made available in the appropriate way and at the appropriate time. Thank you.
So I like Merrick Garland. I think he's a straight shooter. But let me ask you this. So you also have the January 6th probe too, right? Which we haven't really talked about yet. If all these people, and there's hundreds of people that have been prosecuted regarding January 6th, that's another avenue that Trump may have some exposure to. Now, this isn't really a Trump bashing session, okay? It really isn't, because I could give a shit less whether he's the president or not. I'm more of an independent than I am anything else. I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't believe in harsh punishment for nonviolent crimes like drugs. Some of the drug laws right now are just ridiculous. But that's all politics, whatever. Who gives a shit about that? What I do care about is just the fascinating number of cases that this guy's got going on. And so the next step in this whole thing, Trump's team has moved to unseal the application for the search warrant. And the government has filed a response to keep it sealed, saying that their investigation is ongoing, that sources and methods will be exposed, and it'll hurt people. Trump wants it exposed because he wants to find out who the snitch is, and there is definitely at least one, if not more, snitches. So we'll see how it plays out. I think by this fall, you're going to have a grand jury in D.C., or maybe sometime after the midterms, a grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, that are going to come back with some indictments. Is Trump going to get indicted? I have no idea. I wouldn't put it past the federal government to indict him. Sandy Berger was indicted, and he pled guilty to a misdemeanor. General Petraeus, he pled guilty to a misdemeanor. So that could be where it's headed. But the problem is the Espionage Act was implicated. Nuclear secrets, I think, are implicated, but we don't know. We're all speculating about that kind of stuff. But you can kind of see how many balls he's got in the air. And here's the other thing. The top legal talent in D.C. has been contacted, and they've turned him down. But that's in D.C. In Atlanta, however, now Drew Feinling, now you maybe remember we talked about him a little bit. He's represented Gucci Mane, he's represented Cardi B, Waka Flocka Flame, a bunch of different rappers. Trump has hired Drew Feinling. And it's interesting because Drew Feinling had criticized Trump early on. He criticized the firing of the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. He said the POTUS firing the SDNY, that's Southern District of New York, U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, is a sign of fear that he would aggressively investigate the stench hovering over the POTUS. He also criticized him over his comments on LeBron James, stating the racist architect of fraudulent Trump University, criticizing LeBron, the founder of the Free School for Children, POTUS pathetic once again. And what he says, basically, that he doesn't necessarily pick his clients. We all pick our clients. He doesn't let his personal politics get in the way of representing his clients. And he's saying that this is a politically motivated hatchet job, basically. So he does have a really good criminal defense lawyer in Georgia, and it'd be interesting to see what that contract looks like. I would bet it's payment up front. And that's probably one of the things he's most worried about. The only thing about the Georgia case, though, is that everything's recorded. I mean, everything is right there out front. So it's not a matter of what happened. It's a matter of what does it mean. I think Trump would be an absolute nightmare for a client. Not because he's got so much work for you, because that would be great. There's two things. He doesn't pay his people. You think Rudy Giuliani got paid his $20,000 a day? I guarantee you he didn't get paid a dime. Not only does he not pay his lawyer fees, he is just an awful client to manage. When this whole search warrant thing came out, he said we didn't have the records. Then he said it was a shifting target. So if you're telling the truth, your story doesn't change. But then he said, well, I declassified them all. Then he said, they're mine. He said like 3 or 4 different things. And you can just tell that Trump is in a little bit of a panic. And I think I would be if I were him, because he just has so much stuff going on. So we'll keep an eye on this. This has just been a Trump update and brought to you by eforms.com. This is Bruce Rivers, criminal lawyer, board certified. So subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, police is at my call.